Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is the KiltzHealth live stream with Dr. Nelson. I am your host, Dr. Nelson. I'm coming from Central Florida at 76 degrees right now. Outside, not too bad. If you have any questions for our guests, remember you can put them in the chat. Please let me know where you're watching from. And we don't have a giveaway today, so you don't have to put hashtag KMT, but maybe I'll do a giveaway. We'll give away a Dr. Nelson hat. Don't have anyone at hand right now. All right. I've been trying to live stream to Rumble as well, and for some reason it has not been working. All right. So joining us today is a woman who has become a beacon of hope for the community. Since 2017, she has used the principle of ancestral human nutrition to transform her life, losing 90 pounds, reversing both prediabetes and PCOS, and the threat of infertility. But that's not the case any longer, right? Today, we're celebrating her most exciting milestone yet. She's currently 21 weeks pregnant today. She's the creator of Health Edit by Britt, and she's here to share with us her journey of healing and this wonderful new event in her life, because this will be baby number 1. Welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for that introduction. It's good to see you, Dr. Nelson.
So let's start with your story. You were telling me backstage several years ago you've been doing keto for a very, very long time, have been carnivore, meat heavy, very low carb, and have been basically fluctuating around those very closely related styles of eating. But way back when, what was the moment that you said, I'm going to do something, and what was the reason behind it?
Sure.
When you started a ketogenic diet?
Okay, yeah. I'll take you way back to the beginning, since you asked. I kind of one of the stories that I struggled with my weight most of my life. I was an active kid, played all the sports. I was tall for my age at the time. My mom's a fabulous cook. We ate at home mostly, but we knew what we knew back then, and definitely had everything but the butter or whatever it was called in the house, and feared a little bit of fat, a lot of packaged foods, kind of standard American diet, but I would argue the healthier version a little bit, since at least it was home cooking. And I just really struggled with my weight. We tested thyroid, we tested you name it, everything, and I was always kind of on the cusp of things, but sort of chasing that diagnosis, of like, something must be wrong. Surely it's not what I'm eating or my lifestyle. And I have a very curious, fabulous mother, as I mentioned, and she read an article in, I think it was like Women's Health magazine, about PCOS, and said, I think you have this. And so we made an appointment with an endocrinologist at the Cleveland Clinic, where my family lives, and we were lucky to get in up there. And basically they finally tested me for more of the markers of prediabetes, A1C, fasting, insulin, and you name it, those types of things. And I was definitely pre-diabetic at the time. I also had all of the symptoms and the markers for PCOS, which, as we know, is very difficult to test for. but irregular cycles at that time and so forth. So this was around my teenage years in high school, kind of going into college at this point. So shockingly enough, which I don't think we hear this as often as you can relate to, Dr. Nelson, but I had a great doctor that recommended nutrition and a low carb diet. And so I didn't know that, this was about, gosh, 17, 18 years ago. And so I didn't know what keto was by any means. They actually didn't even really call it ketogenic to my knowledge. However, they did have me buy the urine test strips, which we know are not super accurate, by the way, if you are testing your ketones now. But I did use those. And so my goal was, and objective was to get into ketosis. Ultimately, at the time, I actually did more of a protein sparing modified fast diet. It was very high protein. It was very low carb, and it was also lower in fat. I had excessive, really fast weight loss from doing so. And I like to describe this as a time where I was always eager to go back being normal. And so I could lose the weight. I knew my body thrived with this style of eating of low carb at the time. And then I was in college, and so all my friends eating pizza and drinking beer on the weekends and so forth. And so I would kind of go back to eating like everybody else, right? And what I would call normal back then. And I would gain the weight back. And so keto low carb became kind of a default for me as a way for me to get back to health and my comfortable weight. And then again, I just really struggled with adopting that as a lifestyle until I would say later 20s. Later 20s, ketogenic became a little bit more mainstream, a little bit more talked about. I understood a little bit more what I was doing, incorporated a lot more fat in, which made a huge difference for me. And so that's when I've lost and gained about 70 pounds 3 times. The last time I lost 90 pounds, and I stuck with the lifestyle. And that's my normal now.
So a couple of things. I mean, the term ketogenic has been used for a long time, but more within the scientific community, not as a very common word. Most people for the past 40 years, 50 years, they talk about Atkins, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's the most common thing. And Atkins has been at the forefront for the past 60 years at least in ketogenic diets, but they're nothing new. They've been around for a long time by whatever name at the time. Banting diet in the 1800s. There was someone else in the 1700s. But without the internet, we couldn't spread the message as easily. And if we published a book and only a few read it, it was difficult to spread the message. And I think these tools that we have nowadays are extremely powerful in sharing our stories.
Absolutely.
Which is very valuable. I do have a comment about the strips. The strips are accurate, 100% accurate.
Okay, good.
For what they measure.
Okay.
Okay.
Ketones in the urine.
So they are measuring acetoacetate in the urine. And as we become more adapted to the lifestyle, you might have a decrease in acetoacetate in the urine.
Yes.
And they don't reflect that there is no accuracy in determining what the equivalent blood ketones are, which are beta hydroxybutyrate.
Right.
So I always make this point because I do hear the comment, and it is accurate for what they're measuring. It's just we need to understand the physiology of what happens after you're keto adapted.
Sure.
I've known about Atkins for actually almost 60 years because when I wasn't even a doctor, one of my cousins was eating a lot of meat at one point, and she was basically in the induction phase of the Atkins diet. But personally, I've used it past 35, 40 years to yo-yo between here and between here and here.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I lost the desired weight, went back to eating the regular way, very much like what you were mentioning. And it's basically making the decision, okay, this is the way I need to eat the rest of my life.
Right.
So you can stay closer to where you want.
Redefining what's normal, right? I think it's the big thing.
Definitely. So PCOS actually is, from a diagnostic point of view, very easy to diagnose because the syndrome, the diagnostic criteria for the syndrome is having at least 2 of 3 specific things. And 2 of them are in the history and the appearance of the patient as they walk through the door. One of them, I probably don't even need to ask because it requires androgenization, basically, whether there's unwanted hair growing in certain areas, and that's a big sign.
Yeah.
And the other one is ovulatory problems, which many women will volunteer that information because that might even be the reason they're seeing the doctor, right?
Right.
The third criteria, it's having cysts in your ovary, which not everybody has, but it's part of the diagnostic criteria of the syndrome.
Sure.
So how old were you, if I may ask, when they told you, yeah, you have PCOS?
I was, 15 years old.
And at the time, did they mention you may have problems conceiving at some point?
A little bit. I think I was young enough that they didn't harp on that too much.
Of course.
But I definitely did a little bit of my own research. My mom did as well. And that kind of came out, later and was definitely I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a fear, for sure. Just going through life and worried about that because I think of a lot of mainstream doctors or medical professionals do sometimes act like that is irreversible. It's like almost how we hear about like with type 2 diabetes. You know what I mean? It's like we know now that I feel very confident saying, and you're the doctor, so you can correct me, but PCOS, for the most part, it's a metabolic syndrome disorder. And, I've seen it in myself, but also numerous clients, friends, so many people that have completely reversed PCOS symptoms through diet and lifestyle.
And you can absolutely reverse it. And unfortunately, as a medical class, we misinform patients a lot about these metabolic conditions because most doctors will tell you, oh, you have diabetes. Once you have it, you can never reverse it. And that's not true. They're lying to you, but they're not lying on purpose.
Sure.
This is where we were trained. And it's just, I mean, you cannot doubt nowadays with so many stories out there that you can reverse diabetes. In particular, the Britt health study, I think it was 2017, where at least over 50% of the people reversed diabetes, 70% control their condition, de-prescribing a lot of medications. It is possible. And certainly PCOS and diabetes are just basically different manifestations of the same disease. So it is not a surprise that you have been able to reverse your prediabetes and your PCOS because they're kind of the same thing.
Yeah, definitely.
And as a result of doing that comes pregnancy,
Yeah.
which is great. So
Yeah, very excited. And I'll tell you, about this just because I get talking with women sometimes on Instagram about this topic. And, my husband and I, we chose to have children a little bit later. We've been married for a while. And so that was just sort of a decision that we made. And I think that there's such a huge stigma around women specifically having children later. And the fear mongering and how age is everything when it comes to fertility. And after extensive research myself, like, of course we know that we're only born with so many eggs, but we do know it takes one healthy egg to conceive a baby.
yeah.
And I just am a huge believer and advocate for women that want to have children later to know that we can improve the health of our eggs. That's actually very possible to do. It takes a little bit longer than sperm sometimes, but not much. And I believe that that's something that I was able to do through diet and lifestyle just to optimize. We did not have trouble conceiving, which I'm very blessed to be able to say, because there's so much that goes into that. But I did spend many months working on just overall prep for fertility health in general that I'd like to think played a role.
What are your plans for when that bundle of joy arrives, and how to feed him or her? May we know if you know what it
Oh
you're
yeah.
getting? Boy,
Yeah.
girl?
I'm having a little boy.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So maybe at some point he can play with my next grandson, who's gonna be born about a week or 10 days after yours.
He would love that. Absolutely. It'll be a play date.
Yeah. So what are your plans as far
Yeah.
as feeding your
Plans.
little one?
Yeah, plans for me are absolutely to breastfeed. I hope to be able to. I know that, not all women sometimes can do that, but I can tell you that I'm a fighter. So everything in my power to ensure that I can breastfeed is definitely the goal. I think breast milk is optimal when it comes to nutrition for a baby. That's just a personal opinion after a lot of research there. It's nature, the way God intended. So that is my plans for first bid. After that, I'm actually very excited about introducing solids, and I'm gonna go very ancestral. So I'm a big believer in bone marrow and bone broth for first foods, meat stocks, and going that route for sure. I think if we give a baby a sweet potato for their first meal, of course they're going to hate all meat after that. So I plan to be very intentional. And I'm very excited for that chapter, actually. I'm a nerd when it comes to this type of stuff. So that makes me really excited.
Good, good, good. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe wherever you're watching from. And if you have any questions, like I said, for Britt,
Yeah,
put
sure.
in the chat. Okay. Um, let's see. I had made some notes here. And so you already mentioned your plans for this pregnancy. Tell us a little bit about what you had been doing as far as coaching, which you've put on pause now that you are
Yeah.
pregnant.
Yeah, sure. I coached both one-on-one and also group style coaching for a couple years, and loved it. It's definitely a passion of mine and something that I promised I'd bring back this year, but something came in the way. So end of this year is what I'm looking at for relaunching coaching. But yeah, I'm very passionate about I've always offered a little bit of flexibility when it comes to that, just because my diet has always been between keto, carnivore, ketovore, somewhere in the middle. I've been strict carnivore. I've been lenient keto. I've been high fat. I've been high protein. I see benefits to all of it. I don't think there's a one size fits all after coaching hundreds of women in weight loss and just overall hormone optimization and so many things. So I'm always fascinated about what works for different people. And so that's sort of my approach when it came to coaching, is really making it a lifestyle, all encompassing. I love challenges. So I've definitely hosted a couple carnivore challenges. I'm way more passionate, I will say, in the recent years when it comes to ingredients over macros. And so that's sort of a turn that I took. I think, I did keto before keto was cool. And so we didn't have all the packaged goods on the shelves and net carbs versus, total carbs or whatever what everyone's counting, where I'd always be like, oh, I'm sure either one. But now we know, so many things are loaded with fibers or ingredients that your body really doesn't know what to do with. And so when I started, those things came about, I really, I was stalled personally on my own weight loss journey for the first time with some of these packaged convenience foods that were not helpful. And so that really opened up my eyes. I like a lot that's happening right now, which is some of these health movements I'm very passionate about, because I think what we put in our body, what we put on our skin, the air we breathe, our sunshine, it's all encompassing and just living an overall healthy life. And so that's sort of what I've preached and coached with clients over the years.
So definitely the ultra processed foods are still ultra processed, even if they have a label that says keto, right?
That's right.
So they could try to tell you that it's healthy, but this is how we got here, with 75 to 90% of the stuff you buy in supermarkets, that you see in supermarkets, being ultra processed foods, which is basically fake food. Fake food that your body doesn't. It's like trying to put a very cheap fuel in your tank.
Right.
It says premium only.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to run into trouble, and our body doesn't recognize many of these ingredients.
Yeah.
Especially if you cannot even read it, you probably shouldn't eat it, right?
Yeah. And I think learning how your body metabolizes or doesn't metabolize these types of foods it really immediately, in my opinion, debunks the narrative that it's always about calories in, calories out. Like we have a lot of those perspectives on social media for sure, where it's all about the calories. I know that I've posted some things about my own weight loss where they were like, well, you could have done that having Oreos in moderation, and it's like, it's so silly of an argument, because anyone who's dealt with any level of obesity or insulin resistance, which is, majority of the country at this point, sadly, should have an understanding of the differences in real food versus fake food that's labeled 150 calories or keto. My rule of thumb with that is usually, and I would tell my clients this, if it says keto on the package, don't buy it. It's probably not.
I agree absolutely with you 100%.
Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned the Oreo, because it's one of the examples that I use very frequently when they talk about calories in, calories out.
Yes.
Because one Oreo cookie is 50 or 53, I believe, calories specifically. And one egg is about 70 to 75 calories, depending on the size. So following that logic, a breakfast with 10 Oreo cookies, around 500 or so calories, should be healthier than a breakfast with 10 eggs. Not that you need to eat 10 eggs in one sitting, but I don't think it would be wrong to do that. But yeah, it's calories in, calories out. So 500 calories of Oreos will be healthier than 700 calories of eggs, which is a ridiculous premise to start with. But it's just to show a calorie is not really a calorie. It's about the food that you eat. It's not even about the nutrients specifically, because I've heard the argument from people who, for example, don't eat meat, oh, it's about the nutrients. It doesn't matter where they come from. Well, not true either, because spinach has a lot of iron. It's not the iron that you need. You only absorb anywhere from, I don't know, 5 to 10% of that iron, which is not a heme iron, which
Mhm.
is more bioavailable to
Right.
you. Gets absorbed better, is used by your body the way it's supposed to be used and all that. But I'm preaching to the choir, right?
I love it.
Uh, did you have any morning sickness? And of course, you don't have anything to compare to, because being your first pregnancy, but did you have anything significant with
No,
morning
I like this
sickness?
question because, I feel very lucky that I did not have much sickness, but I was nauseous. And so
Okay.
about week 8 to probably I say 12, but really I'm like 15. If I'm being honest, I was pretty nauseous most of the day. It was almost worse at night. But I'll
Hmm.
tell you a couple of the myths when it comes to this too. Interestingly, my cravings were really odd. Like I craved chicken, and
Okay.
I eat chicken, I like all animal proteins, but that wasn't a huge part of my diet before. But I craved chicken, I craved avocado. And so I had healthier cravings, which I feel very blessed to have had that. But I know, and I lived it, so I understand. Like I definitely had a period there where I had low carb crackers that were as clean of ingredients as I could find that would just help me kind of get through when I needed a little bit of substance. I didn't have much aversion. I was a little bit weird about red meat, which was heartbreaking for a couple weeks. But when I would eat protein, and however I could get that in, if that was the chicken I was craving, or I could still do eggs, which was great. They had to be scrambled. I was just particular for a couple weeks, but the protein really helped my nausea. And it never sounded good in the moment, but I would kind of force myself. I did a lot of protein shakes too, just to help get it in. And it absolutely would help my nausea. That, and I increased my B6. And so those were two big ones for me.
Uh, do you have any I mean, you just mentioned one, you were not big on eating chicken, and you were craving it, but do you have any other weird cravings? I mean, were you, obviously you did, hopefully I'm assuming you did not develop a craving for ice cream or
Right.
milk
No,
chocolate?
I really didn't. I mean, I will say, like, I had, and I told you I've been a little bit more low carb during this pregnancy, and having a little bit more variety of things that sounded good. However, yeah, the only like, and I love food. Like I've always liked to, and that's why I love eating a ketogenic diet. It's never felt restrictive to me. I love, adding fat to foods, and you feel very nourished and very satiated. But yeah, the chicken craving was weird. Avocado craving was so intense. And what tells me is both of those foods have potassium, are pretty high in potassium. So I think I was needing a little bit more potassium. So I increased that. I increased salt, and that really helped cravings too. And then the other one, cottage cheese. I like had to have, I was eating cottage cheese like ice cream. And so that was one that, I should say, like a lot of pregnant women eat ice cream. I was like, had to have cottage cheese in the house. So it was really interesting. I didn't know how cravings would affect me eating the way that I do for so long. And so that's been wild. And now that I'm over halfway through my pregnancy, I'm craving red meat again. Like I have to have like ground beef every day right now with eggs. And so that's been a staple meal. I'm having steaks at least twice a week. And so fish has been a little bit hard. I'm taking omega-3s because they definitely have helped like inflammation and things. But fish hasn't sounded as good, where I typically am like a salmon girl. I love salmon at least like once a week. So I'm working on adding a little bit more of that back in. But the red meat's back, which makes me feel happy because it makes me feel amazing when I eat that way.
And the omega-3s are very, very important for the baby as well.
Yes.
DHA and EPA, the
Yes.
DHA in particular, For many years now, baby formula manufacturers have been added the DHA.
Yeah.
Of course, they also add canola oil or soybean oil as the
That,
fat.
right.
Very difficult to find. I don't think it exists probably in the United States, a formula that will be approved
Without
by
spoil-
carnivore moms.
I found one, I'll tell you. And what's funny about it, because like I said, I hope
Is it goat milk based by any chance?
it's not. It's a
No.
whole
Okay.
milk base, A2 milk base. But I'll tell you,
Okay.
it's marketed for toddler because legally they have to. But I would give it to an infant after doing the research that I've had for sure. But it's the only one that's not loaded that I found with the seed oils and the arguments with like the omega 6s, which I know are important. There's a small amount of omega 6, of course, in breast milk for babies, but it's wild when you read these ingredients on formulas.
Well, before pasteurization and industrial production of milk, for thousands of years, we've grown babies with cow's milk, goat's milk, any mammoth's milk available, almost straight from the tit. Just get it out, give it to the baby if needed.
Right.
Definitely breastfeeding as long as you can is the way to go. And then whenever you start introducing other foods, that's a complement to the breast milk.
Yeah.
So how many times a day are you eating?
I used to eat 2 meals a day. And so I did that all the way up to when I got pregnant. And really, I would say for the first several weeks of pregnancy, I was fine eating that way. When the nausea hit in, I wasn't able to eat as large a meals as I was used to, or as not as often. And so that was humbling for me because I wasn't exactly prepared for that. So now, I ate a lot more smaller meals, maybe some eggs with a little bit of avocado, and then I would have some chicken and then some cottage cheese. So I kind of ate like that, but making sure that protein was at every meal because it's how I felt my best. But now I would say 3 meals a day. So I was also fasting a lot before, and people have their opinions about women fasting. It always made me feel fantastic. And I was specific about when I would fast on my cycle. But it took me a decade to learn my body. And so I worked all that out. So I'm not fasting now. Being pregnant, having breakfast, lunch, and dinner with sometimes like a beef isolate smoothie, or maybe a Greek yogurt or something in the afternoon as like a snack. So definitely eating more often than I'm used to, but it's made me feel sustained and good while growing a human.
So what would you tell a keto curious or carnivore curious mom to be, or expecting mom, about eating this ancestral way?
Yeah. Well, from my research when it comes to fertility health, for one, I'd recommend 2 books. One would be Dr.Kiltz, the baby diet, carnivore book for sure, and also Lily Nichols, Real Food for Fertility, was something that I read. I actually didn't finish it because I got pregnant. And she really emphasizes the need for meat in the diet and how important these nutrients are, and really building this up ahead of time. So I started a very strong or very high quality with methylated vitamins prenatal about 3 months before we conceived, and really was eating crazy clean. And I think that made a huge difference. I felt amazing. And it did happen quickly for us. I'm not attributing everything. I know that there's so many people struggling with infertility right now, and it's such a sensitive subject. And it's definitely a fear that I've had being diagnosed with PCOS at 15 years old. So I can absolutely relate to that. But I think that nutrition and lifestyle is so critical. And especially while pregnant, I mean, the research is there. So if anyone wants to look up placentas, if you want to really nerd out, There's actually a side-by-side showing an animal-based placenta of a mother that ate animal-based compared to a vegetarian or a vegan mother. And I'm not trying to hate on any lifestyles, but the science is there of how critical animal-based nutrition is when you are trying to conceive, and definitely when you're pregnant, to get all the nutrients that you need. I think it's so crucial.
We've been for over 100 years influenced by the plant-based diets,
Yes.
but meat-heavy diets, whenever available, and the only reason some people may not have consumed enough meat was because of they were from the poor working class and they didn't have the access
Yeah. Or wars.
because
Yeah.
the kings would eat the meat and the peasants would eat the mush.
Yeah.
But this is the diet that we've had for thousands of years, a plant-based diet exclusively. It's what's new,
Yeah. Right.
right?
Yeah.
You mentioned nutrition, and to people in your family, extended family, circle of friends,
Mhm.
do they have any comments about the way you eat?
Yeah. Well, I think always, because they're like, oh my gosh. I mean, my husband,
Are you
he is,
getting enough nutrients?
yeah, right. I mean, it's funny because I think people are really, at this point, they just know me for me, and like that's just the way I eat, and that's just how I live my life. And it's interesting when I talk to maybe coworkers or to friends or people, they think it's about willpower and discipline, which I think is really sweet. But I'm not I've definitely learned discipline over time. I mean, I don't think you lose 90 pounds without any discipline. However, I'll tell you that most of my success with my weight loss, but also just my overall health, and I definitely have adopted this mindset during pregnancy, while my body is changing and growing and doing all the things it's doing right now, is that I'm about feeling my best. And that's what it's turned into. In the beginning, it was definitely wanting to see a number on the scale or to lose weight or to fit in a certain size pair of jeans. And I did all of those things, and that's great. But over time, it really became about, how do I want to feel? How do I want to show up in the world? What kind of mother now do I want to be? What kind of wife? What type of manager? Friend? We can keep going with that when it comes to the relationships in your life. And I never openly struggled with depression or anxiety that I knew of, but a huge thing that changed with my nutrition and my diet was just that those feelings really lifted. I feel like I became a more patient person, a kinder person, maybe more empathetic. And I know that that feels like a stretch sometimes for people to hear unless they've actually lived it. But when I've reverted back to old habits or to incorporating things in, or kind of this mindset where it's like, oh, I lost the weight, I can have a little bit more flexibility, I don't feel well. And my inflammation goes up and I feel foggy. I do feel less motivated. I don't want to work out, where typically I love to work out. So it's interesting how those things can really impact. And it always goes back to nutrition for me. So to answer your question about that, I have a lot of family members who've adopted this way of eating since I was doing it. And my mother is in her late 60s, has completely reversed osteoporosis, come off all medication, has built muscle, and her bone density is stronger, which people say you can't do, but we've witnessed that. And I mean, my husband's super healthy. Like, he eats an animal-based diet as well. My mother-in-law does too. So it's very cool to I think it's a ripple effect. And sometimes people struggle not having support, or maybe a spouse or family members that aren't on board. And I'll admit, in the beginning that can be really difficult, but I learned being the example is louder than giving the opinion. So sometimes if you can just sort of walk it out, you'd be amazed about how many people it can positively impact over time.
So again, this is a question you don't have a personal point of reference, being your first, but have you noticed any difference on your skin? The pregnancy glow.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, yeah. I mean, I struggled with a lot of acne as a teenager. And so I had all types of skin issues that, of course, back then I never attributed to my diet, right? So we always were trying the new creams and all the things. So I've always been prone to not the best skin. And that all drastically changed when I changed my diet, even before I was pregnant. And now that I'm pregnant, yes, I mean, like, I definitely feel like a glow. My husband tells me that every day, so that's sweet. So it probably has to mean something. But an interesting thing too, and I think it's a mix of my diet, probably my prenatals, but I've not been sick one time since I've been pregnant either. And I think that that's a big testament. And that was sort of my story as well beforehand. I used to get 2 to 3 sinus infections a year. I was always taking a Z-Pack or doing something. I live in Kentucky, so we have terrible allergies. And those have always been issues. All of that, for the most part, really went away. I still had moderate allergies, but nothing compared to before. And since being pregnant, even going through the whole winter, I work in retail. So I'm in the public all the time with a staff that constantly has the flu, has a cold, or has a virus. And I've not been sick one time, knock on wood. I'm always afraid to say it, but I definitely know that comes back to nutrition and lifestyle.
I used to have multiple sinus infections a year because whenever the weather changed, I would start with allergies, going to congestion, and then here came the mucus in different stages, color palette.
Yeah.
And eventually I had to take antibiotics multiple times a year.
Right.
I've been carnivore now for gonna be 1,000 days in a month or so.
Wow, that's awesome. So cool.
So I asked you this before we came live, but you mentioned that you have been eating salt liberally and hasn't caused any problems.
No, it hasn't. And I'll tell you, I just really listen to my body. Like, I feel like I'm very in tune to that, which is nice. And there has been times I actually alternate between a higher potassium electrolyte and then a higher sodium electrolyte. And I do really well with that. So I kind of know what my body needs that day. But yeah, the salt has been essential. I've not had any swelling. I've not had any problems with that. And that's another big myth, like, women during pregnancy need sodium with our blood levels and everything that we have. And obviously quality matters, not the table salt or the ultra processed foods loaded with sodium. That's not the right kind. That kind will cause preeclampsia and all types of issues. But quality salt and electrolytes and minerals is so key. And I was having a little bit of restless leg syndrome, a little bit of stuff like that for a very brief period of time. But again, I knew it was minerals. So, they talk about women having that in pregnancy. My belief is because of our mineral needs that go up. So I increased my magnesium by about 100 milligrams and it went away immediately.
So you mentioned Dr. Kiltz recommended diet, babies for babies, and that is beef, eggs, butter, bacon, ice cream, or intermittent fasting. The I is for both, and salt, right? If you had to pick between those choices, what's your MVP food? What is your number one go-to?
I would have to say, for pregnancy specifically, eggs, because of the
Eggs.
choline. Choline is so critical for brain health for the baby. And eggs make me feel incredible. I have at least probably 3 to 4 every single day. And love them, especially for pregnancy. I think they're huge.
So when you're very low carb and pregnant, you do a low carb, or if you're carnivore, you run the risk, and I hope you're planning for this because this will happen within the next 4 to 6 weeks, probably. Your doctor is going to screen you for gestational diabetes.
Right.
Are you planning? Do you have a plan for that?
I do have a plan for that. And I'll tell you, I've gone back and forth with it because I do check my blood sugar already with just my
with
keto.
what?
I use
Okay.
my keto mojo that does both. And so the fact that I've been a little bit lower carb versus strictly keto carnivore during this pregnancy, I've done that a little bit intentionally because I know a lot of people can fail that test and have false positives when it comes to that, especially when they're strict keto carnivore. I plan on taking the test. I'm not going to drink what they offer. So I'm ordering another brand that offers all clean ingredients, no additives or artificial flavorings or colors to it. So it's a cleaner option and to take
for the loading for the okay.
Yeah. Because the glucon drink that they offer at the hospital or through the doctor is terrible. It's not healthy.
You know that if they really wanted to know more accurately whether you are pre-diabetic or diabetic, gestational diabetes, you could do so with the patterns of CGM, glucose, continuous glucose monitor, or since you already test your blood sugars with, doing multiple sticks a day for a number of days, and a doctor that would like to take the time to do that,
right?
They could use that as a basis to say, no, you don't have gestational diabetes.
I agree.
And if you're doing your own glucose, what are they running at?
Mine are steadily, usually in the 80s after I eat, wait about an hour or so. When I take it, it might be in the 90s, depending on like what I'm having. But yeah, everything's been very normal and steady for me too.
Any brain fog during pregnancy?
I want to say no, but I feel like I've been a tiny bit forgetful about some things. But you know what's really funny is I think a lot of women feel this way in general. I say that I love second trimester. Like I've loved being pregnant from pretty much like 16 weeks until now where I am. So I'm curious if that'll change obviously as we go into third trimester, but I feel incredibly positive and joyful and happy, in general. So hopefully that overcompensates for any type of brain fog that I do have sometimes.
You probably don't need to concentrate on whether you're gaining weight or not, as long as you're eating, which you are eating correctly. But having come from 90 pounds at some point more than you were at the beginning of pregnancy, has that played in your mind a little bit?
No, it's a good question. I had, from my very lowest, I had gained a little bit of weight before I got pregnant. I actually talked to Dr. Kiltz about this last year, and he was like, that's good. He was like encouraging me to like not, because I wanted to kind of shave off about 5-10 pounds to feel a little bit more comfortable, and he was telling me no, because I was healthy, and so I know that can be helpful for women in general. But no, it's a good question, and I really wondered if it would bother me, because I have gained a little bit. It's nothing excessive. It's been very normal. Weight gain for pregnancy. My body has changed a lot. So that's been, something like you kind of have to wrap your mind around it a little bit. But, it's really, to be honest, it's been very liberating in many ways for me as someone who, I was always really an abstainer when it came to food and really stayed away with certain things, mainly because I couldn't control myself around it. I definitely have like a binge eating background. And now that I'm pregnant and I've had a tiny bit of flexibility with my diet, it's like when you're on a weight loss journey and you have that strong reason why, whatever your rock bottom moment may have been that made you start. For right now, my why is my baby boy. And so it just feels like so exciting and powerful to know that you're in control of this and your sleep and your movement and your nutrition and all of that. And I can have a little bit of flexibility, but nothing is triggering, bad behaviors in that way, because I know that that's what my purpose is right now. And so that's been really liberating. So having my body change a little bit, I've really embraced it. I've just finally, you can see my bump over the past like 2 weeks. I'm taller, so I'm a little bit more proportionate. So it's not really been obvious that I'm pregnant. I think I just have kind of looked a little bit bigger for a while.
How tall are you? How tall are you?
I'm 5'8", so I'm not that tall, but taller for a girl, probably.
Okay. And your weight was what, you said?
What'd you say?
Did you say your weight?
No, I didn't say my weight.
Okay. You're fine. And Dr. Kiltz will certainly tell you, don't worry about the weight, eat the way you're eating, and it will be good. Now, if you have any questions, I haven't seen any questions for her. There's a couple of questions for me, and I am going to take them before we finish here. But also put hashtag KMT. We're giving away a Dr. Nelson hat, and if we run out, just Kiltz Mighty Tribe hat, okay? So let me take one of these questions. What causes elevated eosinophils? Eosinophilia, which will be the condition where they're elevated, could be a result of multiple things. The most common ones are allergies and parasites. You're not providing any information that I would have questions about if we were in an exam room, but those are the most common reasons. Anyone that suffers from allergies, also they are involved in our defenses against parasites. So when you have parasites, which is not as common as some people may think, but yeah, there are multiple other conditions where eosinophils are part of. Hope that answers some of your questions.
Why are having a moment right now, Dr. Nelson? I feel like everyone's petrified of parasites. Should we not be?
We've had them for thousands of years. I mean, they're nothing new. They're always going to be with us. Microbes. I think in the United States, most people are not exposed that frequently. Your doctor probably told you not to eat sushi, raw fish, or anything like that. I would still follow your doctor's advice, but you don't have to be, I guess, petrified about it.
Right.
All right. So, Sean, good afternoon. Was hoping you could give me some advice, and recently did lab work to refill thyroid meds, and doctor is urging me to seek treatment for cholesterol. Total cholesterol is 520, 6.8 ratio. Don't know what ratio you're talking about. Most likely you're talking about the cholesterol to HDL ratio, but I am just guessing. And if you're a member of the Kiltz Mighty Tribe, come to our Zoom meetings. We have one at 5:30, and we can explore this question a little bit more. But in isolation a total cholesterol of 520. Total cholesterol, by the way, if anyone is trying to convince you that just based on that number, you need to do something about it, this has been debunked. We are living a new paradigm, and your doctor needs to study more, let's put it that way. Cholesterol is not as heavy a risk for coronary heart disease or strokes as most doctors will have you believe, and is the quality of your cholesterol more than the quantity of your cholesterol that is important. All right. But if you are a member of the Kiltz Method tribe, come to our Zoom meetings. We can talk more about that in the Zoom meetings. All right. Just a general disclaimer, I'm a physician, I'm a licensed physician, but I'm not your doctor. So anything that I say here is for the educational and informational and entertainment purposes. If you have any questions for Britt, please put them in the chat. And Rick hasn't asked me for. We just spent a weekend in Tampa, Dr. Kiltz's house, and then in Tampa. So we had a meetup.
Oh, I saw that.
So I would say Rick hasn't asked me for a hat yet. So if he does, he has my number, he has my email. I think it would look good in it. And I don't have them at hand. Anyways, you did see the thumbnail. That's the usual hat that I have.
Yes, I love it.
All right. So what will you say is the biggest myth about a low carb or carnivore pregnancy you want to bust tonight?
Oh my gosh, so many things. I think a low carb, carnivore, keto pregnancy, whatever makes you feel good, is the best way you can eat and be pregnant. Mainly because of what I forget their name who asked the question about cholesterol. Cholesterol is so essential for fertility and also for pregnancy. And I can tell you, I have high cholesterol. My total cholesterol, my LDL are both sky high. And I'm a lean mass hyperresponder. So the leaner I go, the higher it goes, the lower my triglycerides go, the lower my A1C goes, the lower my CRP goes. So to Dr. Nelson's point, there's so many more markers. And if your doctor, I feel like, is not curious about any of your other markers besides that one thing, that's crazy. But I think that the cholesterol thing, maybe we could talk about that. I mean, that being one of the biggest myths, they actually just had studies come out about the dangers actually of low fat dairy and pregnancy. And so we need fat. The baby's brain needs fat. The mom needs fat. They preach about carbs and what do they do? Like oatmeal cookies to have like the milk come in, and none of it like makes sense at all. I mean, carbs are not essential. And, it's interesting. I was just kind of reading some research about gestational diabetes. And because I've had clients that have come into me in the past with a diagnosis of gestational diabetes, and their doctors tell them to have at least 175 grams of carbs a day and space them out. And that's still the guidelines. That's the recommendation, which is unbelievable. Yeah. And a lot of these mothers then go on insulin, and then they have these huge babies. And they say, oh, I just make big babies. And it's like, no, you don't. That's a blood sugar problem. That's blood sugar.
All righty. So definitely don't do that. I would not advise it. Anyways,
don't do that.
Thank you for being here, Britt. We're going to end it here. Zoom call at 5:30 in the Kiltz Mighty Tribe. If you're a member, I will see you there. Okay. And we're going to be talking about a continuation of a topic from last night. You have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.